This is entry 2 of Expedition Handheld. I'm Russ Crandall.
And I'm Adam Patrick Murray. We will be your guides on this journey through handheld discovery.
Each week, we're going to take you on a new adventure through the world of handheld gaming.
Buckle up. This is Expedition Handheld. And it's episode 2.
Episode 2.
Look how far we've come, Russ.
We are not a one-trick pony.
Yeah. We've at least made 2. Well, not quite yet. We just started the second one, so I guess we'll have to check in a little bit later, see how it's going. But hey, listen, it's all posted. It's up. People saw the first episode. We got a lot of feedback, and I'm thankful. This is fun so far.
I got a lot of good feedback too. People are loving it. You know, this is kind of the let our hair down sort of podcast, and I like that idea too, because I feel like handhelds are a bit more casual than like your like full on like PC gaming or console gaming bubbas, you know? And so I feel like it's a good fit of being like a little bit more casual and hair down while still kind of guiding everyone else too. So I think it's a good fit.
It's just fun. I'm excited. We got some fun stuff to talk about. No breaking news this week, but that's fine. We've got a lot of fun stuff to talk about. So I think we should just get straight into it, Russ. We have a little bit of news to kind of get to and give a little bit of discussion around. So the first question I have for you, Russ, right now is, how big is too big?
So I'm assuming we're talking about handhelds here. And yeah, I mean, if I would answer that, I would say anything over 8 inches. If I had to say, it's like, that's, to me, is too big. Legion Go 2, too big.
Really?
Yeah. What about you?
Like Legion Go 2, you're just out.
Yeah, it's too much. It's too big. It's too heavy. 8 inches is perfect. Like the Legion Go S, beautiful, perfect screen.
Yeah, but is that the screen size or the fact that the Legion Go 2 is heavier?
Probably a combo, you know, but I've never had an 8-inch device that is, other than an ARM-based one. You know, I've never seen an 8-inch handheld PC that's not super heavy, so.
True. Yeah. So, well, I guess I ask you that question because MWC happened, which, if you don't know what that is, it's a trade show called Mobile World Congress, where traditionally, I mean, it's as far as I know, it's always been in Barcelona, Spain. I've actually been there a number of years. I think the last time I went was like 2018. It's been a while. It's mostly around mobile stuff, so phones, networking, all that kind of stuff, B2C, B2B, that kind of stuff. Back when I used to cover phones, obviously it was one of the big ones to go to, but there's always a little bit of computer stuff as well, and I feel like over the past couple of years there's been even more computer stuff, and Lenovo has always gone hard lately at MWC, to the point where I'm like, oh yeah, I just maybe I need to go back again. But to tell you the truth, I'm just not a big fan of Barcelona, but that's another discussion. Yeah. Have you been to Barcelona?
I haven't. I've been to like Seville, so the western side and stuff. But no, never Barcelona, or Barcelona, right, well, as they say it.
My very first MWC, I think it was 2016, I got the worst food poisoning in my life, like a day in. And I think we all shared a big paella, and like I must have hit the bad seafood section or something, and like it was bad. Wow. And like to the point where I was just stuck in my hotel room for a couple days in really bad situation physically. And I did have, I think at the time I had a handheld. I think I had my 3DS, and I was playing one of the Advance Wars games, but like it was Fire Emblem. Okay. Whatever the new Fire Emblem that came out around that time, but like I was still so sick that I was like, I can't even play this. Like this is bad.
That's bad.
Anyway, yeah. Side tangent. I mean, I guess I talked about handhelds there, but for MWC this year, Lenovo was like, check this out. We have a folding handheld prototype called I think they're just calling it the Legion Fold. Prototype kind of thing. There has been some coverage out there. You have not had a chance to see it, Russ, have you?
No, just a couple videos and some articles. It's interesting and not what I was expecting just from the name alone.
Yeah. So it's a folding tablet, essentially, that can be used in multiple different ways. You can obviously use a keyboard with it like a normal computer, or they have these handheld controllers that attach to the side. And I guess the thing that kind of surprised me is that they were showing it off in two modes. One where it was folded with the screen facing out, meaning you can attach the controllers to the side and have a smaller screen. And I think they measured it at, what was it?
7.7 inches.
7.7. And then if you wanted to, you could unfold it and get the full screen, which for some reason you could either attach it vertically or horizontally. I don't know why you would do it vertically. I mean, maybe vertical shooters or something like that. And that is 11.6 inches fully extended. The only thing is that I tried to dig around again today. I did not see anybody give any pixel counts or ratios, because the ratio it's definitely not 16 by 9, and it doesn't look like 19 by 10, or I'm sorry, 16 by 10. Yeah, so like, I don't know if that's going to be an issue or whatever, but yeah, it's an interesting prototype. What do you think, Russ?
Yeah, it's really strange, the foldable concept, when they fold it and then they're playing it with the sides like that, because it's just like you have this weird kind of rounded edge at the top of your display. And I wonder how that's going to actually look as you're playing, not to mention how it's going to look for other people when you have this shiny thing kind of glaring back at them, I think the number one thing that surprised me about it is when I first saw it, I was just expecting it to be ARM-based, some sort of Snapdragon thing, you know what I mean? Like something more lightweight tablet. Like when you hear about a tablet, I often will think about ARM-based chips and whatnot. So I was surprised to find that it is a full-on PC. It's got the Intel Core 7 258V, 32 gigs of RAM, at least in this prototype. And I wasn't expecting an actual PC out of that, which makes it kind of interesting. Like I wonder how Windows is going to work through all of that in terms of the folding and everything else. I don't hear a lot about folding Windows experiences.
Well, funny enough, I remember seeing Lenovo's first folding tablet. They called it a PC. It wasn't. They didn't like using the word tablet, though you could use it in tablet mode, but they had different ways to use it as a PC. I think this was about 2018 timeframe. I'll put a link in the description to the late great Gordon Maung. I was shooting him. He was the one presenting it, and yeah, just kind of going through the motions of like, oh, hey, here's how you could use it. Imagine, you could have it as a tablet, or you could use a little kickstand and put it up and have a little keyboard as well. Right. Or you could bend it like a laptop, kind of 90 degree-ish, and put the keyboard over the bottom. So essentially that half of the screen becomes just a normal laptop screen. It was interesting. It was actually ended up being a product called the ThinkPad X1 Fold. It did come out. It did have a couple of iterations. And Lenovo has been dealing with folding PCs, whatever you want to say, since the 2018 timeframe. The thing is that it's not, at least in that first iteration, it was not an actual Lenovo device. It was just a white label kind of thing, because I can't remember. There's another company that came out with essentially the same device, just branded with whatever company it was. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, it's the same exact thing as the Lenovo thing. So it was some white label manufacturer that people were sticking on it. But I believe what Lenovo has been doing recently is their own internal designs. I don't know that for sure. But yeah, like Lenovo, at least in the PC space, has done a ton of prototypes like this. Like almost every single time I see our Lenovo people for pre-briefs for some major trade show, they have some sort of prototype, and it usually falls in the camps of, oh, this is a prototype that is so well baked that I think it's going to come out, for reasons maybe we'll get to in a second, or there's prototypes that it's just like, oh wow, your engineers are just having some fun throwing some stuff at the wall. And like there was a laptop a couple years ago that had a transparent screen, so essentially it was was it OLED? I can't remember, but like imagine if you could literally just look through your screen. I don't know why you would want to, but that thing was like, that was a prototype that was that might come out, or it's just something to play with. This, I believe, because of Lenovo's past, with already doing these foldable devices, this feels like actually that's something going to come out in my mind.
I got the same vibes. Like I've seen the same thing like at CES, a lot of prototype stuff, not necessarily from Lenovo, but like LG will show off just these random, like wireless TVs and stuff. And I'm sure some of those do come to market. Asus does this too, where they're like, hey, like I remember 2 CESs ago, they had a foldable portable monitor. And I was like, I don't know why you would ever need that, especially for like whatever it was, $4,000 they were expecting it to be. But I think part of it too is like the engineering team is seeing what they can make, and then that first generation is going to be way too expensive. But at some point, it's like getting into the realm of possible and affordable. And so I think that's just one of those steps. But this one does feel like, yeah, it's something that'll come out, especially because of those controllers that are attached to the side of it. It looks like someone spent some time making those. Now they're wacky as heck. Like I can't believe like how weird they look, just they're so beefy and horizontally. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but yeah, someone even said that the thumbsticks feel like they do on the current Legion Go handhelds too.
Yeah, I'll say that that's what sets some of the companies apart from the others, is that Lenovo is such a large manufacturer that they have the resources and the manpower to do a lot of experimentation and try to lead the charge in certain ways, even if they're releasing something that is not going to be a mainstream device. Like I have a laptop over in the lab here that's a ThinkBook rollable. So it's essentially it's a laptop that has a screen that kind of like rolls out to give you more vertical layout. It's really cool, but I'm like, they couldn't have sold that many of these. But it's Lenovo, whatever. It's fine. They're trying to at least try something different, and especially from what I've heard from a lot of these manufacturers is that if you're trying to get market share or trying to establish yourself as a leader, that you're not expecting to sell something, but you're expecting to get a lot of attention, and you get known for trying cool stuff. And honestly, like on the other side of it, I think that's why a lot of the smaller vendors, the Shenzhen-based companies, try to also go for craziness, because then it gets their name, their brand in the news, right? Even though they're like, you know what, we're only going to sell like 100 of these, if that. We should still do it because it gets attention.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I would say any Lenovo release doesn't feel like a make or break release. Like it doesn't matter if one doesn't do well, they've got all sorts of other things they're kind of relying on and leaning on. So yeah, that all makes sense. And I appreciate that they are even trying that, and I thought multiple times, like, okay, what would I play on this thing, And I honestly do like that vertical orientation, like having it just straight up.
Really?
To do, DS, 3DS, and vertical shoot 'em up games, like all the Tate mode games, like that would be really neat, And I've done similar things with, like, I have the ROG Flow Z13, which is a tablet PC, but way too heavy for me to actually use in handheld mode. But prop it up and down, and then just play something vertically. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that's the tablet portion of it. Once again, I have not used it. I'm hoping to get my hands on it sometime soon. But the tablet itself, I feel like, is probably going to be good quality. It's something that they're probably borrowing some sort of design that they already have. I did look through their current portfolio, and their current Z1 Fold, ThinkPad Z1 Fold, is actually not the same dimensions as this. So maybe they'll come out with this, and maybe they'll backport it and have a smaller version of the Z1 Fold for the ThinkPad line. A lot of times they'll repurpose it for different lines and kind of things like that. But the thing that actually has me the most skeptical is the controller part, because that's to me, that can make or break the experience. And sure. That's what happened with, I have one of those tablets right here that had come out, the One X Player X1. So this was like one of the first Intel Meteor Lake based devices, so Core Ultra Series 100. And I was very excited, and I was like, oh, sweet, I want to get this in, because number one, Meteor Lake, I wanted to see how it performed in gaming, and I mean, we know how that went. Number two, I was like, okay, cool, it's a tablet. I can use it in different ways, and it comes with controllers, and I can attach it to the side I want. Other than the Meteor Lake thing, the biggest problem with this was those controllers were junk. They were not comfortable. They felt chintzy and cheap, and I was just like, oh, okay, well this sucks. And to tell you the truth, one of the reasons why I did not like the Legion Go 1 was because those detachable controllers just felt so like cheap and flimsy, and like the plastic, and it was just light. It just felt cheap kind of thing. So that's what I really want to get my hands on. I'm not worried about the actual tablet part, because I bet they have that down right. But those controllers do not look like controllers that they learned with the Legion Go 2.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, they're really thick in the edges too. I worry about that as well. I wasn't a fan of the Legion Go 1 controls at all. I had to use like 3D printed grips to improve the ergonomics. And I agree, totally light feeling. I do like the feeling of the Legion Go 2 controllers, but they're just so dang tall, and it feels like these are kind of the opposite of that, where they seem a little bit more squat. And I don't know if I would like it. It's one of those things where it's so foreign looking to me that I just don't know until I have it in my hands. So, but I feel you with the 1X player, man. Like it's the plastics that really bother me with their line. Like they have that soft plastic kind of feel to it, and just super smudgy. Not a fan.
Are you a fan of anything folding? Have you, like you said, you saw the folding monitor kind of thing, but have you used anything folding in your daily life?
I've never used a thing that has like a crease in it. That just
really
kind of bothers me. Yeah. So I have I have like a Microsoft Surface Duo little phone thing, and I use that for emulation. I never made a video about it. That's cool. It's like two screens that are very like hinge connected.
Yeah, it's two screens though. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know about that whole hinge thing or the crease thing. It just feels weird to me. And even with this one, and maybe I missed it, and maybe you'll know better than me. I only saw it folding backwards, like out, so that you have two glossy sides to it, two screens on both sides. But does it also fold in so you can close it like a book?
Yeah, I didn't see anybody mention that either. I would hope that you could, because that, at least the original pitch with the ThinkPad Z1 Fold was, oh hey, the reason why you would want to fold inward is to protect the screens, right? Because even though they've done a lot of work to make it feel like glass, it is definitely more prone to getting scratches and things like that. So I actually am a huge folding fan. I currently use the OnePlus the OnePlus Open. So I love my folding phones. I had the Samsung ones before that. Big fan of that kind of stuff. And like I've always liked the idea of being able to transform into whatever need you have. So for the phone, most of the time I'm in the normal front screen, but in the times where I want either to see something bigger or have two actual phones side by side, I open it up and it allows me to have that functionality. So like as long as one is not diminished, like it's more like, oh, okay, well I just have two options. Same thing applies for bigger stuff. So that ThinkPad X1 Fold, which I had never gotten in, I think my colleague Gordon had gotten one in to do some testing, but I never used it personally. But the idea of having something that folded out wasn't enabling new experiences. It was more like, oh, you're able to shut it and have a smaller thing to put in your bag. Theoretically, maybe it is easier for portability, but really it was more like, oh, you have that one screen. Well, I guess I should take that back, because they did show the different ways that you could prop it up, or like I said, fold it in half and put the keyboard on it, that kind of stuff. And yeah, I remember at one MWC, one of the earlier ones, when this whole folding phone thing was a big deal. Yeah. I think it was Xiaomi. No, I can't remember. One of the Chinese manufacturers had a folding phone that folded backwards, so that it did have screens on both sides, which most of the manufacturers have said, you don't want to have the folding structure on the outside, because it is like a softer material and it can get messed up. But yeah, man, now I can't remember the name of that company. So this is all to say that I think they should have a way to fold it either way. I can't imagine that they're like, no, the only way to fold it is literally in half with the screens out. Like, you don't want to transport it like that. Like, that doesn't seem like a good thing. But It's something
I'm
to
kind of
try out.
already, I think the great thing about your phone that you have, and I remember seeing you use it at CES, is like, it just looks like a phone, but then also it can open up and it's like, it expands the use, right? But it's not taking away from the fact that it's just a regular old phone if you want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
The setup like this with this Lenovo Fold, it feels like it's like what you're going to carry that thing around. You're going to carry around these two controllers. Like it's just, it seems to me like it's just a lot of contraption going on at that point, as opposed to something that's seamless and just enhancing the overall experience. At that point, I don't know. Just get a tablet. I don't know what to say at that point.
or I mean, the other way that I could think of it is that, speaking of big screens, one of the other handhelds that I have that has a big screen is the GPD WinMax 2. This is the one with Strix Point, so I think it's technically considered WinMax 2.
Yeah,
but I could be wrong. Anyway, this one is like, sure, it's a handheld because it does have actual like handheld controllers built into it, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But really, at the end of the day, this thing is a small 10-inch laptop, right? And
Right.
so I remember I did for a couple weeks try to use this as my daily driver for my work laptop stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I used this on the Full Nerd podcast, sitting here and people were just like, what is it? Is that a toy in front of you?
Right.
Kind of thing. Like, and so like, I felt like in this experience, this was the worst of both worlds. For a handheld, it was just too bulky, mostly because of the grips. I actually liked the fact that it had a huge screen.
Yeah.
But then for a laptop, this 10 inches is just way too small. But I know friend of the show, Carrie the Fox, like I think he was daily driving this for a while. Still is?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And so he has that hooked up to a 5090.
That's way too small of a screen, man. I can't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'm sure he probably docks his.
He does
when it's at home, but like other like unless you're docking it, like I don't know. So
no, that was my review of it. The same handheld I was like, it's not a great handheld. It's not a great laptop. Like that's basically how we can put it. So, but it's cool to have them both, as opposed to carrying two different things around.
Well, that's maybe where I could see this gaming one being more like, oh, hey, listen, you unfold it when you want to do work. You have a little keyboard with it. It's a productivity thing, and then if you want to game on it, most likely you're probably gonna, fold it back and just use the half screen kind of thing.
Sure.
But even then, so yeah, but that's the thing. It's got to be good for both use cases. And right now, the gaming one looks for productivity. It probably is great. At that size. What was the size again? 11.6.
Yeah.
So
again, just being devil's advocate, if I have like either 7.7 or 11.6 inches, why wouldn't I just use the 11.6 inches even when gaming? You know what I mean? Like, why would I be like, no, I actually only want 3/4 of the experience, please. Like I just
maybe battery life.
Sure. Okay. But I don't know. I feel like I'd rather just have a tablet PC at that point. I don't see the value of it folding, I guess, at this point, unless it closes up and then it does protect it and then it makes it smaller. Okay. Fair game at that one.
Okay. Well, I want to go back to our original question, or my original question, which is how big is too big? And I guess you already answered it for your end. You top out at 8 inches.
For a handheld, right? I have the ROG Flow Z13. That is actually my main Windows computer right now. And I play it mostly docked, but I'll pull it out and just, tablet mode or tent mode, where I'll just kind of set it on the table and play like that. And it's a wonderful experience. But I just, I have telescopic controllers that are big enough to put around it. And I've never done it once. Just too heavy, so.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to continue a handheld tour here. So the very first one I got in that was large that I was very excited about was the Ionea Kun. Now this thing had a lot of problems for a lot of other reasons, namely the controls. I just did not like the controls at all.
Yeah. Did you like the D-pad? I love the D-pad on that.
I did like the D-pad. Yeah.
Okay.
And actually the circle pads, I actually kind of like those as well. But yeah, everything else, especially the squishy bumpers, like one of the bumpers actually ended up just not working on me and dying after a while.
I know.
But yeah, this was what, a 8.4 inch screen. And I remember thinking like, heck yes, this is awesome. Give me more of this. And then, I had gotten in that GPD WinMax 2. or WinMax
Yep.
2. 10 inches. I actually did like this. I think this might be the upper limit for a handheld for me, though, because at that point, and maybe it's a resolution thing, because this does have a higher resolution screen that, like, as awesome as Strix Point is, it wasn't able to push, and the image starts to break down. It's like putting a Steam Deck on a TV, right? Like, it's good for like very lightweight games, but if you try to push it, you're just like, okay, well, I'm only getting Steam Deck graphics here, so like I feel like this is kind of an upper limit thing. I do have the RG Flow Z13 13-inch, but yeah, I guess I wouldn't call that a handheld either. I've never done that.
Yeah.
Legion Go 2, which is 8.8 inches, is probably, if I had to guess, maybe the sweet spot.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you are a taller guy than me. You got bigger hands, so that makes sense. Yeah, for me, it's that 8-inch. The biggest handheld I've ever used, like a handheld, was the Absolute, like ABXY Loot. It's called a 3D one. I reviewed it maybe 4 months ago or so, and it's got built-in stereoscopic 3D in it, kind of like a 3DS, but with this huge, almost 11-inch screen.
I totally forgot about this.
Yeah. And so I did review that, and it was a nightmare. Like, it's fine as a tablet. Again, same thing for me. Just putting it on a table and playing it like that's fine. But man, I talked about it in the review, but I got such bad headaches from the 3D technology that I was like literally laying here in the studio and taking naps because I was getting such bad headaches. I was like, I gotta take a nap for an hour and then resume my gameplay footage testing. It was how bad it was. So it took me like 2 or 3 additional days to record footage for the review. It took much longer than expected, and no one watched the video in the first place. So it was just like it was like insult to injury. But that's way too big for me. 11 inches was massive.
Yeah, I mean, especially at that point, yeah, you really got to think about the ergonomics. So I totally, the minute I clicked on this, I remember why I had seen this. I don't remember if I watched your video or not, but I have actually used one of these. It just wasn't under that brand. Do you know another brand that has that exact same handheld?
It was like Tencent or something like that. They had something coming out at CES or something like that.
Acer.
That's right. That's
2
right.
CESs ago, Acer revealed 2 other handheld sizes, and like people started digging in and being like, "Oh wait, hold on, none of these are actually your designs. You're relabeling them." I did actually reach out to Acer at that time and be like, "Hey, can you confirm this?" And they never got back to me for comment. But yeah, so I actually have used this. I totally forgot. It didn't have the 3D thing as far as I remember.
Okay.
I did a video on that, but yeah, that's I don't know. I mean, I'm open to it because at least it has like actual controllers versus the GPD WinMax 2, which is kind of forcing controllers into the laptop form factor. So I'm not against it. But
yeah, I mean, it's at the end of the day, I want these companies to go big and go small. Like, I want to see how far we can stretch it in either end of the spectrum. And so I appreciate these things even coming out in the first place. They are fun to review and kind of figure out whether or not this would be a good fit, But for me, I guess I'm just kind of middle of the road. 7-8 inches is usually going to be the best when playing something more heavy duty. Obviously, with your kind of handheld little systems, then something that's even as small as 2.8 inches is fine for me if it's something I can throw in my pocket.
Okay, that was going to be my very last question. How small is too small? Because I remember like playing with some of those devices I showed off last time, like the BitBoy, and I was just like, okay, the screen, I can deal with the screen, but it's the ergonomics. My hands, I guess, are way too big. Like even the original Game Boy DMG is like just pushing the limits of like being comfortable in my hand.
Yeah.
and so like that's where it kills me. I can deal with a small screen, but it's always just comes with bad ergonomics, or like the Game Boy Micro.
Right. Yeah. For me, it's just about how long of a game session I can like withstand at that size, And so like say this little guy right here is the Trim UI Brick, and I think it's a 3.2 inch screen, and it's fine, but it's just like a 20-minute session. I'm not going to be playing through any sort of games on this, but if I want to run through the first 3 Mario levels, in Mario 3 or something, I could do that. But
there you go.
Yeah, it's all really about time on task, I think.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of tasks, you have been using That's not a great transition. I'm going to strike that one from the court, sir. Please, the court strikes that from the record.
Sure.
So let's do this again. Yeah, the Xbox emulator. Tell me about this. You have it in our notes. There we go.
Yeah. So just yesterday, as of this filming, there's a new Xbox emulator, Xbox like original OG Xbox, right, on Android, and it's a port of Xemu. Xemu's been out for a while. XEMU. It's on PC. I think you can play it on Linux as well, and it's great. It's still very much a work in progress. It's been for many years. I don't think it's a large team. I don't think there's a lot of interest compared to some of the other systems in terms of emulation development. But this is now an Android port, and it's interesting because Xemu, which is the PC one, it's full on open source, freely available and whatnot. And so this developer on the Android side, he took that open source code, and then made an app out of it on Android, ported it over, which I'm assuming takes a lot of work to do, but then put it up on the Play Store for $8. And so it's kind of one of those where it feels a little bit off that someone's charging for work that, for the most part, other than the porting part, the dev team itself did all that work and they don't charge anything. But it's all within GitHub licensing, or within their licensing requirements for the open source software. But one of the requirements of the software, and this is kind of a funny story, is that they have to put the source code up available. And so the source code's up on GitHub. And of course, somebody took that source code, compiled their own app, and then just put it out for free. So it's like free and open source wins again, And the other interesting part about it is that the Xemu development team heard about all this stuff. They're like, yeah, it sucks that this is happening. We wouldn't like that to happen. But it's motivating them to make their own Android app as well. So I'd much rather get it straight from the source. The guys who are making all that work themselves, I feel like they're going to have a little bit more home team advantage and a little bit more pride in that work. And so I've been messing around with this emulator all day, and man, it was a lot of work getting it up and running compared to the PC version. Just a lot of little bugs and stuff.
Oh, bugs.
Yeah, so it's like it only accepted one specific file extension regardless of the file type. And so I had to rename all my files. And it's one of those where if you first open up the game, it opens up the Xbox like boot screen, and then it says, please insert a disk. And this happens sometimes in Xemu. All you do is you restart the emulation, and then it'll start the game. But this doesn't have that option in the app. And so you have to close it out and then restart it again. So every game you want to try, you've got to try it twice. And so that took me a while to figure out as well. But yeah, it's working. Some games, I'm trying it on the Retroid Pocket 6, which is a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 handheld. And yeah, I got like Jet Set Radio Future working pretty well. It doesn't have any sort of metrics in it. I can't tell you how many frames per second are actually running, but feels close to 60. So feels good.
Do you know why Xemu didn't do their own version until like now? Kind of they're talking about it.
Yeah, I think it's just priorities. They've just always been focusing on those PC builds, and it's been that way for years. And they are slowly and incrementally getting better. It's still not. It's one of those platforms where I say, don't ever buy a computer to emulate Xbox on, because it's just not there yet. It's not to the point where it's like, okay, I can replace my catalog with it, or I can play all these hidden gems, because many times it's buggy or it's broken. It's always going to be the more popular games that actually work, Halo and Jet Set Radio and stuff. But, some games that are still hidden on the original Xbox are still not that playable. And so it's just one of those where I found it always to be not quite worth it in terms of investing money into, but always a nice to have.
Do you know if that's because original Xbox emulation is just tough? Like I obviously have heard of the stories of the PS3 and emulation around that, just because of how complicated it was to even code for it back in the day.
Yeah.
But Xbox, the original Xbox, I guess I don't remember it being that hard to emulate. Or
I'm not an expert in it, but I feel like architecture wise, it's not that hard. I know there are some tricks. I've seen a couple like dev blogs about it where I'm like, okay, that does sound pretty hard, but it's like I don't know enough about it. But what's interesting is that, yes, the PS3 notoriously hard in terms of just the development and the architecture and everything else, but the development for PS3 emulation is much further ahead than Xbox. And I think it's the enthusiasm piece. Just a lot of people involved in it. I mean, their team is just so good, and they are always producing like new change logs, and it's always impressive what they're doing. And so, yeah, I think it's just time on task, and like the amount of eyes on it is what I should say, really. And Yeah, we'll get there someday. The Xbox 360 emulator is the same way. And also, again, that makes sense to me because you can just throw your Xbox 360 disc into an Xbox today and still play many of those games. And so I don't think that a lot of motivation is there for that either.
Interesting. Okay. Well, so would you recommend somebody try this out, or the free version, I guess?
I definitely would recommend doing the free version. The other silly thing about this $8 one is I was like, okay, I'll pay this guy first just to see how it is. If the guy's going to ask for payment for his work, even if it's just the porting of it over, let's see, you know. And within like a few minutes, I was like, okay, this is not worth my $8, you know. So I went to go to get a refund from the Play Store, and Google said, no, sorry, the way that this person set up their refunds or whatever, you know, when you first set up your app, has it set so it isn't aligned with Google's policies, and so you can't get a refund. And so, so that was kind of just like, I'm like, oh, you're just digging the knife in a little bit more, and so I lost my $8 there. So yeah, I would definitely recommend checking out the free one, which you can find, and you know, of course, waiting for the official one from the Zemu team whenever that comes will probably be the best bet.
So we'll leave a link down in the description for the free one. What was the name of the free one? It's not in the notes here, actually.
It's called X1 Box, and it's just a fork of it. The free one is called the same thing. Yeah, so it's just whether or not you get it on GitHub or whether or not you get it from the Play Store.
Oh, got it. Oh, okay, so the free one is not on the Play Store. You have to actually sideload it.
You have to get the APK from GitHub and
got
load
it.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Which, I mean, like, I'm okay sideloading APKs. I guess that depends on how people feel about security and stuff like that. But interesting. Okay. That's it for news. Was there anything else you want to pop in for?
That was the big stuff, that foldable and then this Xbox emulator.
All right. Well, before we keep going, why don't we pause for a little ad break, and we'll be right back. All right. Back from an ad break. Look at that. It was that easy. Hopefully it was an interesting ad. Let us know what ad it was, and please let us know if it was an ad actually that you don't think is appropriate and don't like. We are getting feedback for that, and have a little bit of control on what gets played. But anyway, let's move over to what's in your pocket, Russ. This is where we're gonna discuss a little bit of hardware we've been messing around with, things like that. So what have you been messing around with?
So I have so many pockets, but the number one thing that I've been messing around with this week, and it's really been a bit now, I made a video about it, so there's the Anbernic RGDS. This thing is basically like about the same size as a DSi XL, so it's a big DS. It's not like a DS Lite, you know. And this thing came out before Christmas, and it's got the Rockchip RK3568, which is like a pretty budget ARM chip that mostly was designed at least to play Android on this thing. And so it comes with Android stock, and it's so low powered for that. Like, they removed the Play Store and all the Google Play services because that takes up overhead, and they didn't have that overhead to contend with, you know. And so it's just, you have to sideload every app on this, and obviously you're going to be limited in what you can actually load. I did not like this thing. Like, I made an impressions video where, I mean, they had messed up the software pretty bad, where one screen was going at 60 hertz, the other one was running at 40 hertz.
Oh, that's this one. Okay, I do remember that one.
So lousy. And then they fixed that, and then I made a review, and it still wasn't great. You know, the software is just buggy. The thing about a dual screen device like this, we hear a lot about like the Thor and stuff. Those have a lot better processors, and so it allows you to do some really seamless multitasking. You know, the idea of like playing a video while playing a game, or just having dual screen gaming going on. All that makes a lot of sense on a higher end handheld like the Thor, which can also emulate 3DS. This thing just didn't make sense. Like, it was bogging down while trying to play a Game Boy game and then watching a YouTube video down below. Like, that's how bad it was, you know. So I kind of just put it on a shelf and didn't touch it for a while. And then I heard a couple weeks ago that a team that builds a custom firmware called Rocknix, which is Linux for rock chip devices like this one. And they had made a build that works for this device and even had touchscreen support and dual screen support and everything. And so I loaded it up. It's as simple as just, you know, flashing the OS onto an SD card and then loading it from the SD card instead of the internal storage. And it is great. It saved this device. Like, it feels like an actual console. I can go and I navigate through my games, and then DS content just works. Like, both screens are fine, 60 hertz, no problem. This doesn't allow for any multitasking. I couldn't pull up a YouTube video while playing a game, but I don't know. I don't really need my DS to play YouTube in the first place. And so when it comes to just playing DS games, it's fine. It's not perfect. Like this screen in particular is a 480p resolution, which is not an integer scale with the original DS. It's kind of like this weird 2.5. And it also doesn't have enough power to play some emulators. Like there's one called Melon DS, which is really great because it allows for retro achievements, which I'm a big fan of. It doesn't run on this thing. It doesn't have enough power. So I have to use Drastic instead, which is a different emulator. But yeah, that's like the majority of my time has been just re-enjoying old DS games on this thing. Because it is a better experience, I would say, in general, than an actual DS in most ways. And so that's what I've really been enjoying, these nice new screens that are quite bright compared to the original console. And yeah, that's it. Linux saved the day again.
Well, it's funny because it kind of comes full circle from our discussion last week about Lenovo providing long-term support for the Legion Go 1.
Right.
And we kind of talked about this as like, even if something is out of support, when did this original device come out?
Oh, gosh, just like 3 months ago.
What, really?
It has not been out long. Yeah, it's like
Oh.
Christmas time. But Ambernick is
some reason,
notorious
I
for
think
just
that-
like releasing and dropping.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. Okay. Well, I didn't think it was that new. For some reason, I thought it was a couple years old. I guess I'm thinking of the wrong device. But hey, either way, still stands is that it is nice that there are communities out there that are able to make changes or save kind of device. I guess in this case, it just kind of saved it from the churn of Ambernick kind of stuff.
Right.
I don't think anybody should ever buy a device that sucks, hoping that maybe one day somebody will fix it, because you shouldn't buy on future promises, is kind of what we say around here.
Absolutely.
But if maybe you did get it and you thought you were interested and you're like, the experience wasn't great, that is a nice heartwarming story to hear.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about these developers, the Rocknix people.
Rocknix. Yeah, so they've been around forever, actually. They got started around the same time I got started with my channel, so it's been about 6 years. So the very first, the Ambernick RG351P, which was like their first like emulation station-backed like Linux handheld, they made a firmware for that called 351 Elec, and it was based off of Emulec, which was like a well-known emulator front-end at the time. And so they started creating their own OS, and then did that for years and supported basically most of the Ambernick devices. They moved on to another one that they called Jealous, Jelos, which is Just Enough Linux OS. And so they were doing that for a while. And then that team also just kind of moved on, because a lot of it has to do with like the main developers and who comes and goes, And so they rebranded again, calling it Rocknix. And it's been a few years at this point, and they're still just plugging away. They do a really great job. Any of these low-powered Ambernick handhelds or Powkitty or any of those other ones often will have support from Rocknix, and it's just a very simple OS. And the cool thing is that like, because they just make a lot of good development choices over time, it all gets ported over to the new chip and stuff. And so as new devices come out, the lead time to when you actually see one of these builds for these handhelds is very short, provided that the development team has one of these devices to test on. And so, yeah, really cool. And the next frontier that they've been working on is a new, it's a new boot image that doesn't require a bootloader for Android-based devices. So you can take something, they basically have it unlocked for all Snapdragon devices. So you can take something like the Retroid Pocket 6, boot it into the SD card, and then run Linux on an Android handheld. And there's some cool things with that. Earlier we were talking about the Xbox emulator. Rocknix has had this running on Android-based devices for about a year and a half now, where you can play your Xbox games on this device through Linux. And a couple other neat things like that. PS3 emulation was a lot further ahead on Linux than it was on Android for quite some time. I think it still is a little bit further ahead too. So yeah, there's just like a really cool team. And again, these guys, they don't ask for any money. They don't charge anything. I don't even know if they have donation pages, like they just do this for fun. And you can find so many cool things from these guys.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I hope they have a way for people to give back. I know that there are different kind of ways that people either ask for donations, things like that, or like Emulation Station, where you can get like the newest versions. Right. By signing up for Patreon. I think they do it through Patreon.
Yeah, through Emulation Station Desktop Edition.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of cool work being done, and it's hard. Like that's one of the main things I try to do as a channel is like promote these guys. Man, look at how cool this stuff is. They take this, DS device, which has got its own share of problems, and they've souped it up, and basically made it now feel like a gaming console, which is awesome. There are other developers out there. There's one called Gamma OS. He makes those Android builds for these that are based off of Lineage OS, and so there's one for that as well. So if you wanted to have a cleaner version of Android, you can do that, or you can go Linux, and I love the amount of choice there.
So if I remember correctly, also in your review of this device, you had a problem with ergonomics as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's just your typical like clamshell feeling where everything's just a little bit squarish, and kind of it's got its share of issues. And to be honest, DS emulation in general will never really feel like the original because of the screen technology. The bottom screen, the touch screen. The old ones are called resistive touch screens. You can use those styluses and it just feels nice and tactile. It has a little bit of give to it. I love that feeling. And these are just your typical touch panels. They call them capacitive touch screens. And so you could use your finger on this. That's great. But you can't use a DS stylus on it. You got to use other ones and like rubber tip ones and stuff. So it's never exactly the same. There's always a bit of lag compared to the original console as well. Not that much. I was surprised to see how zippy this actually is, but that's always a concession too.
How do you feel about re-reviewing devices now that there's a new way to experience it like this? Do you feel like it validates the review that you originally put up, or do you think it's worth like going back and revisiting?
Yeah, I feel like it's just all part of a continuing conversation. You know what I mean? For me, it's like, my review still stands. My first impressions where I was like, this thing sucks. I think I called it a half-baked mess at the time. And it's like, I still stand by that because at the time it was bad. And that motivated Ambernick to fix it. And so I'm happy about that as well. The review came out afterwards. I always like pin comments and be like, hey, make sure you check the latest, and this is the same thing. I think I called the video that I made about this one the other day, custom firmware saved the RGDS, basically, because that's what it feels like to me. It's like this thing sat on a shelf for months, and now I'm playing it every day. And that to me is saving a device. Okay,
that's awesome. Speaking of saving a device, Nintendo has decided to save the Virtual Boy. So yeah, I got in one of those new Virtual Boy, the full system, the $100 headset kind of thing, and I was a little curious because I think we should talk about this as a handheld. And I'll tell you why in a second.
Okay. Yeah.
But then also, my wife had posted a video on her Instagram of me using it and just looking silly, of course, because I'm just sitting there at a table, leaning my head against it. And she got messages by people who are close to our age, so we're around at the time, and we're sentient humans, and they were like, "What is that? I've never heard of that." And I was like, "What? You've never heard of the Nintendo Virtual Boy? Like Nintendo made a console that you don't know of?" And they're like, "No, I didn't know." Wow. So I was like, "Wow, I really wonder how many people don't know what a Virtual Boy is or never heard of it, or I guess, or most people probably fall in the camp of what you do, which is you've never actually used one, right?"
Yeah, I've never seen one in real life other than like maybe at a museum or something, like a video game museum. I've been to a few of those, but I've never tested it out or anything. The closest I've had to a Virtual Boy experience is that Absolute 3D handheld that we were talking about earlier that had the telescopic 3D.
That's more like the 3DS though. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm curious. And honestly, I don't know anything about this new one. Like, how does it work? Do you slot the Switch inside of it, or do you plug it in? Like, how does it work?
Yeah, I was curious too. And inside the actual box, I mean, unless I missed it, there was no easy to look out instruction manual, anything like that. So I had to read some reviews and look at other people's coverage just to see how to use this thing. So, I mean, this does pretty much look like a one-to-one recreation. I've seen videos of people having it side by side, and I don't have the original. I actually had to use the original. Back in the day, there was a kid in our neighborhood that we weren't necessarily friends with, but we were friends for a week, if that makes sense, to be like, oh, sweet, I want to come over to your house and play the Virtual Boy. So whatever time frame that was. I guess maybe 97, 98, somewhere around there. I do remember going and playing it, and then the next week we weren't really friends that much anymore. It's like, hey, do you want to come over and play the Virtual Boy again? I was like, oh, sorry, no, I'm good. Anyway, as far as I can tell, at least by other coverage, this thing is pretty 1-to-1, and like lovingly crafted. Like there's even cutouts for, or not cutouts, but little engravings where like the controllers used to go, and like there's like a little jog wheel for the volume. It doesn't actually turn or do anything, but it's there and it's labeled. So yeah, it's just a plastic shell that you kind of snap open like this, and then you can insert right here. I have my original, or not original, the OLED switch, but it does accept the Switch 2. You have to change out the bottom depending on which Switch version, just because the original Switch is shallower. So essentially you just slot it in like that with the controllers off and close it up, and you have no idea that a Switch is in there, except for it kind of pokes out of the bottom here. You can kind of see the corners a little bit of the handheld. So, and the other weird thing too is that it's kind of free floating in here a little bit. Like I don't know if you can see that, but you can kind of like move it side to side. So I mean, it does guide it to be like right in the center, but for the most part, like you can just kind of shift it side to side in a weird way. Anyway, and then it has a clamping mechanism that you put on it, which is pretty similar to the original one. And then you just use either the Joy-Cons that you detached or controller or something like that, and put your head up against it. And essentially, like actually, I don't have it on, so I can't show you, but it's just using two different parts of the screen to do stereoscopic vision. Way different than what the original Virtual Boy did, which if anybody is interested, the Slow-Mo guys on YouTube did a breakdown of the Virtual Boy technology. And I don't know if you've watched it, Russ. Have you watched that video? Oh, no. I should put it down in the description. You should watch it, because the way that they drew the image on screen, it was only one line of pixels, but they were using image retention at such a high refresh that like it would like not burn onto your eyeballs, but essentially, using image retention that is based off of human vision to kind of like keep the image lingering. So it was only a single row of pixels to draw the image. A very, very crazy technology. Yeah. Unfortunately, I mean, if you don't know, the Virtual Boy failed. Major failure. The guy who invented it was kind of the end of his career in a lot of ways because of that. But yeah, I used it.
I got a couple of thoughts about this. One, so we had, have you heard of like the Nintendo Labo or Labo, which was like Labo, their cardboard stuff or whatever? So they had a headset thing. My son was obsessed with it. He's 17 now, but he must have been like 10 or whatever at the time, and he was just like, oh man, I can't wait to do this. And he liked it for about 10 minutes, and it was just kind of hilarious. So it reminds me of that. I was expecting it to be something that's powered or something, like I wasn't expecting it really just to be an instrument to, it's like what do they call it? The Google Cardboard. It kind of looks like that almost.
So they do actually have a cheaper version that's just cardboard that you can use. And I have seen people play the Labo-based games because they made Labo versions of one of the Zelda games and a couple other games, like a stereoscopic 3D thing. So you can actually play it in here. I mean, unfortunately, the eye cups, the way they make it red is just from the actual lenses
the tint
themselves. Yeah, so they just tint it. You can actually pop it out if you want to try, but it's not a great experience. So like you can play those Labo games in this. It's just then you have the red tint to it. So maybe.
So how does it stack up to your 1997 memories of playing it back in the day?
I mean, the games themselves, just not great. Like that's why it's so crazy that they put so much thought and effort and attention into this. Like I understand they're trying to preserve history, which is cool, but usually that's not Nintendo's MO, is to preserve history. We kind of have seen this, right? but also it just feels like a weird addition because you have to be a member of the Nintendo Switch Online thing to get a part of it. And I can't imagine this like inspired a bunch of signups to be like, oh, you know what, man, Virtual Boy finally on NSO. I'm gonna sign up. I mean, I guess prove me wrong if you're out there. Get in the comments. Let me know that this is what changed your mind, because it's not that you sign up for NSO. You have to buy one of the headsets to then play it as well. So you gotta be invested in it. And if you're invested in it, then you're probably somebody who actually cares and cares about the preservation aspect of it. Like it's not a great experience from a gameplay or even the headset, to tell you the truth. The coverage of the lenses, I couldn't see the whole thing in one frame. Wow. Meaning like I would have to shift my eyes up a little bit if I wanted to see what was down at the bottom. Like at least with my eyesight, I wasn't able to see everything at the exact same time. Maybe I didn't jam my face up against it hard enough or something, but yeah. And then at the end of the day, the games are just like interesting novelties, but I mean they run at like 12 frames a second. A lot of them is just like, oh, I'm starting to get a little nauseous. Really, the only game that's kind of worth something is there's a Wario Land game on here where it's 2D side scrolling, but you can actually play with the depth of field. Like he can go back into the level and start doing stuff. And I'm like, man, if they would have committed to like having some sort of mainline Mario game on there or something, like maybe it would have had a different fate. But yeah, I don't know. I would not recommend this thing unless you either A, really care about it for some reason, or are so curious and you have extra money, I guess.
Yeah, I played that Wario game when I was testing the Absolute, and it's fun. I like the idea of going into the background. It reminds me of, I don't know how much you played of Super Mario Wonder, but they have the same kind of thing where sometimes you can go into the background, And the Rayman games have always done that for years too, Donkey Kong Country as well. So, okay, so my next question is, you said that it's kind of like a handheld. So what does that mean? Like, is this feels to me like is a hot dog a sandwich? Like, is this thing a handheld?
A hot dog is definitely a sandwich. Okay. But actually, the counter question I have for you, Russ, is it a chicken sandwich or a chicken burger? If it's a single piece of fried chicken meat, like you get at Popeyes or something, do you call it a sandwich or a burger?
I call it a sandwich, but I think logically we should maybe call it burgers. I mean, we should, well, I don't know, because I mean, a burger to me has got hamburger in it, so that's part of it too.
Yeah, I've had this debate with a lot of people, and it seems to be a regional thing. Like I've been over in Taiwan many times, and yeah, they call it a chicken burger over there. But then I'm here, and I'm like, no, Popeyes. Like, what are you going to roll up to Popeyes and say, oh yeah, give me a chicken burger? I mean, they'll probably still give it to you, but they'd probably be like, what is this person doing? It's a sandwich. Also, it's like a single. Typically a single piece of breaded meat, not ground up. For me, it's the meat that constitutes it. But for a lot of people, I think it's the delivery system kind of thing. So by that definition, I guess the hot dog is not a sandwich because the delivery mechanism's different.
So
but I don't know.
So is the Virtual Boy a handheld then? Yeah. That's the question. Or
the real question, I say yes. For a number of reasons. Number one, the history of it was that this was the major project from Gunpei Yokoi. I'm probably butchering his name, but he was the guy behind the original Game Boy.
Right.
And so then this is almost a one-to-one legacy tie into then his next major project was here, the Virtual Boy. Once again, that same kind of moniker of boy at the end. So like to me that number one points to it. Number two, this is portable. Maybe not a handheld, but it is portable. Like the original device, I mean, was a little less portable because you had to plug it in and it had a controller built into the stand and that kind of stuff. But technically, you could take that thing anywhere. Your NES still always had to be tied to a TV. You couldn't just play it on its own kind of thing, or I guess at the time it was the Super Nintendo. But like this thing you could theoretically take to somebody's house. So, like in my mind that makes it more portable. And especially in this iteration, you're literally jamming a portable console, which is the Switch, into this. And because it's not externally powered, you can literally take this anywhere. So like, even if you argue, I could see the arguments for the original Virtual Boy not being a handheld, but this one, like this is damn close to a handheld in my mind.
Yeah, I think at that point it's an accessory to a handheld, which makes it a handheld still, And honestly, in your defense, like Gunpei Yokoi also made the Wonder Swan afterwards, so it's like he's just known for making handhelds over time. So I think that makes sense.
So but I'm sure we will get a lot of comments correcting, but we'll see, because who knows, maybe at the time, and I'm not a Nintendo historian, I don't know if at the time they were marketing this as something that was portable. Like maybe they were like, no, you don't want to take this anywhere. You're just going to live in one place in your house. But in my mind, you could theoretically take it anywhere. And I guess by that definition, it breaks down because you could pick up your NES and take it to your friend's house and plug it in, but you couldn't take it to the park. Right. Or actually, maybe you wouldn't take your Virtual Boy to the park either. So anyway,
it's the lack of TV thing, though, I think that does make it portable. It's backpackable.
Yeah. So this thing does not fit in my pocket, even if I had Jinkos. I mean, I guess if you, no, I don't know. I guess I haven't used Jinko jeans since the 90s, so I don't remember how big those pockets are, but I'd be surprised if you get those in your Jinko jeans, but who knows? Prove me wrong. But that's what's in our pockets. I want to move over to the next segment, Russ. Yeah. Which let's call it Buyer's Corner, if you will. We actually had this segment last week, and this is where we kind of debated the Steam Deck OLED being out of stock, which you got a lot of feedback, Russ, that you should do that video.
I know. I'm actually thinking maybe doing it this weekend. So
there you go. I'm excited to the point where I have actually been looking to get my hands on one as well to do my own head-to-head testing. Nice. But here we have a grouping of direct questions from people who need buying advice. They called up Russ and they said, Russ, I need your buying advice. Just kidding. They put these in the question segments over on our Full Nerd Network Discord. If you want to get a question in, go to the link in the description. There's a Discord channel called the Full Nerd Network that houses all of the Full Nerd Network podcasts. And if you scroll down on the left side, there is an EH_questions channel. That's where you can put a question in that hopefully will get read here on this show. A lot of people also pointed out that, is this a question channel for Canadians? It's like, questions. But also the show, just kind of, I guess. Yeah. Anyway, let's get to the questions. So Pressurized Gas says, I have an Ambernick RG35XX-H because of Russ, and I want something even more pocketable that I can take with me for standing in a queue for like 3 minutes. I'm a big fan of you guys and wish you the much luck with the podcast. Thank you.
Okay. So RG35XX-H, the way that you can figure out the Ambernick handhelds is that the first two numbers indicate the screen size. So 3.5 is 3.5 inches. So this is like a horizontal 3.5 inch handheld, just a really kind of typical smaller size. I love this one. It's like very comfortable to use. I would still say it's pocketable. It's about, a little thicker than a cell phone, but not quite as tall, so it's something you can definitely throw in your pocket. If they're looking for something smaller than that, then my recommendation would be the one that I carry around as my little guy, which is the Miu Mini Flip. So, most people know what the Miu Mini is, right? Just the same kind of device where smaller, Game Boy sized. This thing is the clamshell version of it. Same screen size, so 2.8 inches, a smaller handheld. Same internals and everything as the Miu Mini, except this one has Wi-Fi, the other one did not. But it's so tiny and just small. I can throw this in my pocket and forget about it. You can't really do that with a lot of handhelds. So this is my little guy. Like, this is my Jiffy Lube guy is what I usually call it. So it's like waiting in line at Jiffy Lube. You're like, you never know when you're going to call your name, but you could bust out a couple levels and something, And there's a lot of good firmware for this already. So one that I use is called Min UI. It's like mini UI. And it is so simple. It's all text-based. You just go through, pick your game, start it up. But the great thing is it has built-in sleep functionality with this. So middle of a game, just close it up. And for 3 minutes, it'll just be in a sleep mode. So if you open it up, it's instant. But if you wait longer than 3 minutes, it'll power down the device to save you battery life and save the game exactly where you were when you do it. So all you have to do at that point is just open it up, hit the power button. It takes about 15 seconds to start up, and it'll go right back into where you were in the game as well. So very seamless, very pick up and play. So that's my recommendation for like a little guy, which is the one that I use.
Nice. Well, in their scenario where they're in the queue for 3 minutes, 15 seconds is not a not sizable chunk of that 3 minute
Right.
queue wait. Do you think that's like too long to get going?
I think it's fine. You know, what I will usually do is like, as I start thinking about what am I going to play or am I going to play or not, I'm already opening the thing up. I've already put the push down on the power button. By the time you're like there, like, okay, am I still get your situational awareness, make sure you're not going to bump into anyone. And then it's going to be ready for you. So I think it's great. You know, this is what I used. You didn't go to it, but there was the Lenovo keynote inside of the Sphere during CES. And that thing, we had like an hour and a half wait before it started. And I had this little guy, you know, like they were very picky about what you were allowed to bring in. No bags or anything, you know. I was like, well, I'm going to bring this and play Sonic. And so, yeah, I ended up playing Sonic 1 on this. And I think it's just like the perfect use case where you're stuck in a place where maybe you're waiting longer than you would think. Just open it up and play a few games.
And what's the battery life like for such a small thing?
About 3-4 hours. Not bad. You know, it's
Okay.
it's enough that like you're not, you know, ergonomically you're not going to want to do a long session on it anyway. But it's not one you have to charge every day or anything like that. So
Does it
I'd
have
probably
any
charge it
issues?
once a week.
Like if imagine, you're using this thing kind of, you know, sporadically through your week. Does it have any battery drain when it's in completely shut down?
No, it's good. Like it's the sleep mode is the only time it'll pull battery really, and that's only going to last for about 3 minutes if you're not playing it. So it's around, I think, $60, which I mean, it's like the price of a normal game at this point, you know what I mean? But then you can put 1,000 games on this. I personally only put 5 to 10 on here to remove that element of choice, because I'm like, I don't want to browse through Netflix all day. You know, I want to actually play a game. And so that's my thing, is like, I don't want to have that kind of doom and gloom of browsing. And so instead, 5 or 10 games max.
Right. Cool. Awesome. Hopefully that helps. Next question from Zuckram. I'm just going to pronounce it that way. Russ, do you believe the Odin 3 is worth the upgrade from an Odin 2 Portal if you mainly use it for PC games and Switch emulation?
Okay, so background here. Odin 2 Portal is a large OLED 7-inch ARM-based Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 handheld. 120 hertz OLED display, beautiful. It's really great specifically for streaming, game streaming. You think about, I mean, it's almost the size of a Steam Deck, you know, but like a fraction of the weight, and then also very comfortable. And so it's a great way to, like, if you've already got a PC and you want to stream to something, Odin 2 Portal is a really excellent recommendation. So the Odin 3 came out, 4 months ago now, and this has the Snapdragon 8 Elite processor in it. So 2 generations ahead in terms of performance power, but smaller screen, 6 inches, OLED, 120 hertz, very comfortable. It's actually my main handheld right now. And the problem with this one is Snapdragon 8 Elite drivers are not as mature as they are on the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. And so when it comes to Switch game in particular, you can't load custom drivers yet. The team is doing a great job in like making the emulator work better and better with the Snapdragon 8 Elite chip, but it's still not the same place. I've never really thought that any Android-based handheld should be a Switch replacement, because compatibility is really just not there. You know, it's more like, I feel like it's like 75%, where it's like, yes, 75% of the games that you want to play through Switch emulation will probably work pretty well, but it's not necessarily the point of buying a handheld to me. I would say the Odin 3 is worse than that, and so I would definitely not recommend that. It's not going to feel like an upgrade from the Odin 2 Portal to the Odin 3 for Switch. Now for PC games, it's kind of a world of difference. Like, there is a pretty big jump there, but it's the same thing, you know, with any of these Android-based handhelds that can now play PC games through apps like Game Hub and Game Native, which are essentially just using translation layers. It's not a PC handheld replacement. Like, I wouldn't say, yeah, sell your Steam Deck and get that, you know. But there is definitely a significant uptick in the games that'll run and run well on the Odin 3 versus the Odin 2 Portal. So life is not simple, and this is not a simple answer, but like I feel like yes for PC, no for Switch. And you just kind of got to figure out if that's going to be worth it. And then bear in mind the Odin 3 starts at like $330. So that's a lot of money to spend if you've already got a handheld that can do a lot already.
Well, because of the performance being a couple generations behind, is the Odin 2 Portal like actually going to perform better for Switch stuff? Or
it's not really an issue of performance for those, because even the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, which is the same. Yeah, it's just drivers. And so you can play there are a couple Switch games that are going to just chug, like Tears of the Kingdom. It's just really hard to emulate. It's a big game. Xenoblade is one that's really hard to run. So those are probably going to maybe have a performance boost with the Odin 3 if the drivers were there. But I think when it comes down to it, this will mostly, performance-wise, be fine for Switch games. It's the compatibility that's the issue.
Now, I just said earlier that you shouldn't buy on future promises, but, I mean, the driver support will get there at some point. Do you,
right.
I guess, number one, do you believe that? Number two, how soon do you think that it would be there to the point where you're saying, oh, you know what, actually take all that away, drivers are in a good spot?
So the Mesa team, which is the people that make the third-party drivers, we call them turnip drivers often. The team that makes this has stated that they are working on it. There's a couple, what people have been doing is they've been seeing their changes in GitHub and then grabbing those and then compiling those drivers. And so there are drivers out there, but they're not official. They're not from the team just yet. They're still working on it, but it's coming along. So I think it is a matter of when, not if. But it's going to be a while. I feel like the Odin 3, even though it came out in 2025, it didn't make my best handhelds of 2025 list at all. And I think it will be on the list for 2026, if not at the top of it, depending on how the drivers go. Because like I said, it's my main handheld. I mostly am playing PS2 games on it, just because that runs really well in that chipset. And I love this screen. But then PC games are really great too. I've been playing some pretty middleweight games on this thing without even having to turn the fan on, which is crazy.
So there's a lot of talk of the Android translation layer because of Valve's FEX announcement, right? How much do you think that this is going to play into enabling devices like this do better Android emulation?
I think I don't know if it's going to have a direct correlation, but I think it's going to cause a lot of attention to this whole idea. And I think that's going to open up a bunch of doors. There are some apps already, Game Native is one of them, that is actually implementing some FEX stuff in there. And so I'm seeing some of that stuff already. The chip that's in the Valve headset is the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. So it's the generation between these two. But GPU driver-wise, it's very similar to the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, which is what a lot of these handhelds, the Odin 2s, the Thor, the Retroid Pocket 6, all those have that same chip in it. So I'm thinking that PC gaming in general is just going to get a lot better over the next year or so. I don't know if it will ever get to the point of be like, yeah, you don't need a handheld PC, you can use this, but it is magical when you get a game running and you're like, this is just as good as it is on the Steam Deck, and I'm not having to deal with x86. So
I know I've yet to use any of those. I've seen you talking about it, but I mean I have so many x86 handhelds.
Right.
I don't dip into the Android stuff that often. So
yeah,
interesting. Okay. And the last Buyer's Corners question that I have is from Benjamin. 3DS aftermarket is crazy right now, but so are RAM prices. For anyone interested in playing 3DS games, would tracking down a used 3DS or a new AYN Thor be a better option?
Okay.
And specifically, real quick, want to hear about the nitty-gritty details related to 3DS emulation, if shaders still take a long time to compute, and how noticeable input lag is, and that kind of stuff.
Okay. So this is the Thor. This is that Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 dual screen handhelds. Beautiful. It's wonderful. A 3D, this thing starts at $250 for a lower powered chip, the Snapdragon 865, but then the 8 Gen 2 goes up from there. It's like $320 now or $310, and it goes on from there. A used 3DS is usually going to be $200 to $300, depending on the quality, depending on if you get a Japanese import. There's so many things to go on there. And it's all aging technology. that's another thing to think about is like, there was a whole lottery thing with the 3DSs. Did I get IPS displays or are they TFN or whatever? And so there's all that going on too. This is dual OLED displays. I mean, like how I can't complain about that, For my part, I would say if it was between the two and the price was not that far off from the other, if you're only going to be playing 3DS games and you want that 3DS experience, you want to be able to go into the menu, you want to use things like Street Pass and stuff, like that's when you would want a 3DS. If you want to stay within that. If you want upscaling, you want OLED technology, you want the ability to play stuff beyond 3DS, then the Thor, to me, is just a no-brainer. Now, he asked about the nitty-gritty details for 3DS emulation. So he asked about shader compilation. So that's like number one thing with one of the main apps that we're using, which is called Azahar, which is a fork of Citron. It's one of those that, like, I don't know if you remember, but like Yuzu and those Switch ones got taken down, and Citron, because they had like very similar development teams, it just was like it came down as part of the same process. So people forked it, and then they've been working on it, and now Azahar is kind of like the main one now. And they've been doing some great stuff, and they have been implementing Vulkan shader support with compilation, like pre-shader caching, basically. So all that stuff in terms of stuttering and stuff, which has been an issue with 3DS emulation, is getting a lot better. I wouldn't say it's fixed, but it's a lot better. Input latency is still a little bit worse than the original consoles, but it's to the point where I can play anything but rhythm games. Like I'm not going to play any sort of rhythm games on this thing, but like I can play everything else.
Or something.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like one of my test games on the original DS. And so it's like almost there, but not quite. Very close. And for me, my part, I mean, I'm kind of biased towards emulation devices because I love it, but I feel like I get a lot more joy out of the Thor than I ever have with a 3DS, and I've got a couple of those. So.
Thank you. I think that's awesome. I think the harder question, like, I'm not Benjamin. I don't know where they're coming from specifically, but I think the other part of it too is the fact that I don't think that 3DSs are going to get any easier to get. It's only going to get harder from here in my mind. Maybe I'm completely wrong, kind of stuff.
Sure.
So if you're even interested in getting one right now, now is probably the time. You don't want to maybe buy an AYN Thor and then be like, oh man, I wish you wait a couple years and you're like, man, I should have got that 3DS a couple years ago instead of the AYN Thor, because now prices are even worse. So
right.
I'm sure maybe that's something they're struggling with. At least that's something I think I would struggle with. So yeah, I think it really depends on the experience. And if you're like, you're just going to dabble, or if you're like, oh, I want a straight game. Like I think I talked about last week where I haven't actually picked up an AYN Thor because I prefer using the native experience, the right. original experience, even though you can get all this cool stuff like OLED and better frame rates and higher resolution quality, stuff like that. I'm holding on to dear life with my new 3DS XL because I love that thing. And yes, the technology is aging, but kind of like the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance and stuff, like people have, there's a really good aftermarket. I've always thought about taking my Game Boy Advance and getting that swap of the screen.
Yeah, the backlit.
Yeah, because I mean I haven't done it. I guess I haven't needed to, but yeah, I don't know. I fall personally in the camp of, if you're interested in the original hardware, you might as well just get it now because it's not going to get any better.
No, I think it's good advice. I mean, honestly, the best time to buy a 3DS was last year, or the year before that, because it is getting higher and higher in price. And yeah, I totally agree. It's kind of two different philosophies really when it comes down to it, and neither are bad or wrong. It's just a matter of like, what specifically are you looking to play? 3DS gives you that more pure 3DS experience, and I think there's no arguing that.
Yeah, I think the other part too is, man, how many handhelds do you want to have around? That's it's like right. As I'm starting to hit that midlife crisis and collect all my old consoles that I had, I'm just like, oh, this is why I got rid of those in the first place, because they're just taking up a ton of room. Dang it. So yeah, I don't know. Interesting. All right. Well, why don't we get to a couple more just general questions?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Label
I want to hear
as
some answers from you too.
Yeah. Well, let's see, because I think this first one is very, very interesting. It's kind of something that I think we could probably could have expanded into a whole topic itself, but I do want to bring it up. So I have no idea how to say this name, but Piefek, Piefek. How do you stop tinkering with the damn things and actually sit down and play some games? That's a great question. Russ.
Okay.
How do you just play some games? How do you do it?
Yes. So I found that limitation breeds creativity with me. I've always been this way. And so I feel like just truncating down the experience really forces things. So we were just talking about the Thor. So I've got like this app called Cocoon on here, which is a front-end app like Emulation Station, but it is very visual and it's kind of 3D-esque like. And you can see I've only got maybe a dozen, maybe 18 games installed on it. And that's it. Like as far as like what there are a ton more games on this device, but that's all that I'm showing on the front end. Like I went through and I picked, all right, what are the 15, 20 games that I'm actually going to play, and so I put those on there. And so it's a cool experience for me, like Mario 2, New Super Mario Brothers 2, so 3DS game. But then right next to it, I have Absalom, a PC game running on Game Native. And so I can just kind of choose between them. And so I've always found the limitation is a big thing. I was talking about it earlier with the Miu Mini Flip, 5 to 10 games, just put them on there. The other games will be there later. You can always just take these games off, put on new ones. But removing the scrolling, I think really kind of helps for me, like the browsing experience. I take that away from myself sometimes, and that really helps.
Well, I don't know if this gets to the heart of the question, though. The question is more like, how do I stop tinkering? Not just getting like overloaded with too many games. Like I think it's the tinkering part. Like how many? I think that's the other problem too, is that there are so many devices that yes, you can go in there and really tailor the experience, like that Cocoon thing or the Emulation Station front end, and get it all beautiful. You have a lot of awesome tips on our setup guides, both in written and video form. I've used plenty of them. But like, how many devices can you just get right now on the Android side that is just like, oh, you know what? Just start playing with it. It's fine enough.
None.
None, really.
There's not one. I mean, there's no Android device where, unless you're going to play Android games from the game store, you know what I mean? Like there's just nothing out there. You got to set it up. I would say a Linux-based handheld, something that runs Rocknix, for example, that's going to be it, because they've already pre-configured all that stuff for you. You don't have to set up hotkeys. You don't have to set up your emulation profiles. They've already done all that stuff. You just drop your games in and then play it. If they're talking about like a handheld PC or even the Thor and stuff, and I get what they're saying now, it's to turn off the metrics. Turn off your frames per second. Turn off all the things that let you know how well the device is doing, and just look at the screen and just be like, who knows? I think it's around 60. Play like that, and that's going to make you actually play the game. That's my own advice for myself, I think.
You're right. I mean, that's something I struggle with as well, especially being in this where we are actually evaluating hardware and things like that, where it's like when I just sit down and have my own game time, it's still hard to break myself from that habit. I actually had a discussion in our Discord and in the Linux channel today about kind of this same thing, because I have another podcast called Dual Boot Diaries where I'm kind of learning the Linux land. And for years, I was using the Steam Deck, using SteamOS, and I did not have to go into the back end.
Right.
Like I did not have to shell out to the desktop. I mean, obviously, if you want to do configuration or load up some emulation stuff, you can do that if you want to. But for the most part, my x86 devices, I just play PC games. And so I think that is one of the great things about SteamOS and the Steam Deck specifically, is that it just made it so easy to just literally sign in, download a game, and play it. Like, I mean, sure, maybe there's an update or something, or maybe you need to tweak a couple visual settings in the game or something like that. But for the most part, that's like the easiest experience outside of the Linux stuff. The Linux-based little handhelds that we were just talking about. That is just like, you don't have to tinker at all. It's just there. It's set up. To me, that's like that's awesome. I really appreciate it, especially for a gaming console, or something where you're trying to play games with it. So
Yeah,
like,
no,
do you think the Android-based stuff, which to tell you the truth, that's why I don't do a ton of the Android-based stuff, even though I use your guides and things like that, is that half the time I futz around for hours getting it set up, and then by the time I'm done with that, I'm like, I don't even want to play a game anymore. I'm done. Like, do you think this is a real problem for the Android-based stuff?
I think that the setup part is definitely, like, it is really a big barrier to entry. Tinkering wise, I think that once you have it set up, and I typically, when I do my starter guides, they're getting longer and longer. Like my video starter guide for the Retrowave Pocket 6 was almost 2 hours. Like, it's a long video, and I break it up into chunks and stuff. But,
which, thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
So the idea is that I am also showing all the performance things that you would want to do for that particular chip, so that you don't ever have to do it again. Like, you just go through my 2-hour class or whatever, and then once you're done, it's not really tinkering at that point anymore. It's curating like the library and those kind of things. And so, yeah, it's Android is always going to have that barrier to entry, just because it is pretty challenging to get into. I mean, there are tools on Steam Deck, like EmuDeck, which will just kind of streamline the process for you. You've got Windows tools that you can use as well. There's one called RetroBat, and it's just like it puts all the emulators together, drop in your games, and everything's pre-configured. So you have those options. Android doesn't have that because of file permission and security issues and stuff. Like, you cannot just grab a config file and drop it in. Although I know some teams who are working on something like that, where it's like a full-on, like I'm working with them to build a configuration profile and then just say, hey, download all this, drop it into here, and now you'll be able to play everything. So that's potentially coming, but it's very difficult because of all the different versions of Android and the different security layers for each of them and whatnot. So yeah, unfortunately, I think it's always going to be a bit of setup when it comes to Android stuff.
Oh, yeah. That sucks. It's weird. And I feel like it's not even just the handhelds that are held back by two. Like, everyone has a phone in their pocket too, but it, like, that brings its own challenges. Like, right. Sure, there's the setup stuff around that, but then, okay, well, what kind of device am I going to use to control it? You're probably not going to want to use a touchscreen. So do you get a backbone? Do you get, some other clip to a controller? How do you pair it? All that kind of stuff. Right. So yeah,
it's complicated.
The Android stuff is definitely, I feel like, the worst part of that. And luckily, SteamOS has shown a way where the floor is all the way down at ground zero. It is so easy to just go into it and just start playing games. But the ceiling is also really high. If you want to go in there and configure to your heart's extent, go for it. That's awesome. And I think that's a good thing. And why I was arguing with some people in Linux, in our Linux channels, because they were like, oh no, you should take pride in being able to futz around with something and make it your own. And I'm like, yes, I get it, but in certain scenarios, especially when you're just wanting to game, like I don't think that's good. I think it's good to offer those really easy ways. Not everybody needs to know how the file system works, or where you're going to put your root folder or your home folder, things like that. Like, just let the install do it for you. So,
yeah.
Which is honestly, it's one of the reasons why I've been messing around with the handhelds right now and putting different distros on them, because I know I've talked about this before, but yeah, I took the Legion Go 2 and I put a number of handheld versions of distros like Nobara, Kashi, Bazite, obviously, SteamOS, and just put all of them on just to kind of see what is the out-of-the-box experience. I think the problem I have so far is that none of them have just an out-of-the-box experience. Like, I think the closest one is Bazite, really. But I think that's because I shouldn't have used the Legion Go 2. That's probably too new of a device. I bet... Like, now I want to go grab one of my older devices, like maybe the original ROG Ally, and go through that same sequence and be like, oh, is this just as easy to set up out of the box and get running as it is on the Steam Deck? Because, I mean, maybe I'm assuming wrong, but I feel like, because it's had more time to bake, that those things actually are way easier to get into. But
I think it's fair, and I know a lot of those teams have struggled with things like the detachable controllers on the Legion Go 2. So it's like, yeah, simplifying that for yourself would probably make it easier too.
Yeah. Let's get to another question. I'm going to save a couple of these. Liquid RS, we're seeing the Ramageddon negatively impact availability of the Steam Deck. Have there been any indications from other manufacturers how their supply is doing? Asus, GPD, etc.
So I can talk about GPD a little bit.
Okay.
So I saw them 2 months ago now at CES, and they had they had a booth in the main show hall, which was really interesting because usually they're like kind of in the Shenzhen corner, or like the other sides, and so it was good to see them and catch up. And I just looking at what they have on the table, and they just had their stuff from last year out. They've got like the GPD Win 5, which is a really impressive handheld. It's got the Strix Halo in it, so that thing's going to be great for a while. And then they had their Win Max and the Win Mini and something else, and nothing new. Nothing we haven't seen since basically September and on, and that's rare. Usually they have something they're working on. So I asked him, I'm like, so what are you guys working on? He's like, nothing. He's like, yeah, he's like, it's so hard to predict what things are going to be going on. This is 2 months ago, but he basically was saying because of RAM and storage issues, they're really struggling to see what they can create at a point that's going to be affordable for everybody. And so that to me was a big indication already, not necessarily that they're having stock issues with the current products, and I'm not really sure if that's going on, but whether or not we're going to see things in the future, like that's going to have a ripple effect. I would say that what we see in terms of output from GPT this year and even maybe next year might be lower than it has been in previous years because of this fear, the volatility of the market. So that's at least the indication I've seen from GPT. What have you been seeing, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, I mostly chat with the x86 based handheld stuff. I mean, I think from what I understand, just in the RAM stuff in general, like we actually had a analyst on, a friend of mine, Dr. Ian Cuttress from the Tech Potato YouTube channel. He's an analyst, and he kind of came on explaining this stuff, which it is complicated because there's a lot of stuff going on around it, and there's a lot of misinformation out there too on how to view it and what this means and all that kind of stuff. So I think one of the things that people should remember is that this isn't a supply issue, this is a demand issue. The supply is, even best case scenario, if they're trying to ramp up supply, which they're not necessarily doing either for reasons, that the supply issue, can't just be addressed quickly. You can't just spin up a new fab that's manufacturing DRAM. So it's mostly a demand issue. And that's because all these AI data centers need more and more RAM, and they're willing to pay more and more prices for it. So with that in mind, the companies are having to come to the table to get allocation of RAM. And so the companies that have the most grunt power to push around right now are the AI, the large data center companies that are trying to get as much as they can, right? And they're willing to pay huge money for it. But the next tier down, if you will, are larger companies that like Lenovo or Asus. Actually, I don't even know if I'd put Asus in that market because they're kind of the next step down in terms of PC manufacturers. Really, we're talking about like HP, Dell, Lenovo, Apple, right? Some of the biggest, largest manufacturers out there, and they have more money. They have more buying power to try to get allocation of this. Though there is unfortunately some issues around that because some companies are getting bid, and it sounds like, at least according to Ian, that some companies are counter bidding so that they're losing their place in line, and also everyone's in a different cycle. So people don't just say, oh, I have a new laptop, I'm going to come out with it, and now I'm going to order a bunch of RAM. Usually these things are bought in allocation for X amount of time. And so, maybe a company like HP was lucky enough to renegotiate mid last year for a 3-year deal. So it kind of theoretically locks them into getting that supply. There were reports that I had heard that Apple was just in the negotiation phase as all this stuff was hitting. So like that's a bad spot to be in when you're trying to allocate for the next number of years. This is all to say that I think the larger manufacturers like Lenovo, to a certain degree Asus, are not going to get hit as hard. MSI, I guess I would put in that as well, where I think the Shenzhen-based companies are going to struggle even more. Because they just don't have the buying power to come to the table and be like, oh, you know what, I'm willing to put down a huge order for a lot more money to get what I need. So, like, I think that's, unfortunately, it's going to shrink the market to a certain degree. I bet within this year we will see one of the major Shenzhen-based manufacturers just pull out. I could see, I have no idea. Maybe this is just, me catastrophizing something, but it would not surprise me if one of those smaller companies are like, you know what, we can't sustain this anymore, so we're just not gonna be around anymore. So.
Yeah, no, I think it's fair, and even with the really small places, like my guys like Ambernick and whatnot. I mean, we've seen Powkitty was a company. It was pretty big at one point. They no longer are making handhelds, and I think a lot of it was going on there. In terms of not just the RAM issues, but some other things. And so, but we are seeing that where it's, even Ambernick has been telling me, like, before I was even realizing that RAM was going to impact them, they were telling me, they were like, oh yeah, RAM's getting more expensive for us. They were telling me this before the new year, and they've even gone as far as like some devices, like they have this little clamshell called the RG34XXSP. I hate their names. And this one, it came with 2 gigs of RAM. And I remember making my video and I was like, this is more RAM than some of the other same counterparts with the same chip. And it's awesome because it allows you to play more PC ports. Like there's all these great reasons to use that RAM. And sure enough, they cut that RAM. It's now only 1 gig. And so they did that maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. So they are definitely feeling that pain as well. And I think didn't we see like a press release from Asus like a month ago or so where they were like, hey, prices are going to increase. And I don't think we ever saw any price increases, but they said that. They were like, oh yeah, prices are going to increase for us. So yeah, I think it's going to happen.
Well, and there was something you talked about last, over the weekend, actually, when we launched the first episode of who was it that was raising prices, announced that they were raising prices.
Oh, both AYN and Retroid now have
Retroid,
upped their prices. Yeah. And so, it's coming. I think that's part, and Retroid's a good example too, because they had the Retroid Pocket 6 just came out a month or two ago, and they had 2 SKUs, one that had 8 gigs of RAM, one that had 12 gigs of RAM. And they said, okay, we are raising the price on the 8 gig model by $15, I think, and we're no longer making the 12 gig model. And so it was like they basically are just getting rid of the high spec SKU, because if you think about it, that one takes 50% more RAM to produce than the other one. And so they're just kind of tightening up and saying, all right, we can make more 8 gigabyte models and actually meet demand. And so we're just getting rid of the 12 gigabyte model, which sucks because you want to have RAM for PC gaming in particular. And so, that is a pain point for them too.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a bunch of different levers being pulled, because the manufacturers can either raise prices and try to maintain what they're already having, or they adjust configurations, and which probably means less configurations, or what you used to pay for, you're going to get less. Like actually at CES, there was a number of companies, including I had an interview on PCWorld's YouTube channel with the CEO of Gigabyte, which I actually did ask him if and when there's going to be a Gigabyte handheld, which made the news rounds. So that was fun. But also in that same interview, he even admitted that internally they're trying to look at their devices and be more realistic with the configurations. They're like, hey, for a gaming laptop that is marketed for gamers and kind of configured that way, should we be including 64 gig options? Like obviously that's overkill for gaming. 32, like do you even need 32? Could we say, hey, you know what, we're going to limit the configuration to 16, and you're really only losing maybe 5% performance because of it? I don't know. They said they've been doing the numbers, and they kind of have to make those internal calculations. But either way, that sucks, because that means that I mean, I guess it's good that you're not paying you're not paying for the increase, but really you're still paying because you're getting less for what you used to pay. So that's not good either. I mean, I guess if I were to try to find a silver lining, maybe to play devil's avocado is to, like, we've complained that, oh, hey, there's too many devices coming out. I mean, that's the joke with Ambernick, right? It's just like, oh, it's a Tuesday. There's another device. I mean, could this be maybe a good thing that there's just like less churn out there?
No, I think it is good. And, even in the handheld PC spectrum, beyond just the cheaper stuff, it's like, I don't like the annual cadence release timing. Like we've had new ROG allies every year, and I don't feel like that's something we need. I mean, we're still going with the first iteration of the Steam Deck. I mean, we had a kind of mid-cycle refresh with the OLED, but that wasn't a huge bump, same chip and everything. So, like I would rather have longer times in between. And this might, it just kind of goes back to this thing that I've kind of been my channel MO for the past month or two, is like, what can we do with what we already have? And I made so many videos kind of focusing on that aspect because I'm feeling it too. Like, I don't want to have all these new handhelds. I'd rather see, what we have to work with and then do something cool with that.
Right. Yeah. So interesting times indeed. So yeah, I guess we'll see. And I guess maybe after this, we should do just a mass round of asking for comments from a bunch of different companies. Just to try to see if there's like a report we can put together. And now I just said that publicly, so somebody else might do it too. Let's do one more question and get out of here.
Sure.
This is from Big City Blinken. Hey, Russ, big fan of your work. Hey, the same. The handheld scene has changed so much since you started in 2020. It was a niche, DIY hobby back then, but now it's more mainstream and plug and play. As handhelds continue to get better, where do you see the space heading? How are you thinking of evolving the RetroCore brand? So two different questions, but good ones.
Yeah. I am a very self-reflective person. Like, I'm always thinking about like where I fit in the world and, how that kind of works beyond just, this channel. I've always been doing that. And so evolving Retro Game Core as a brand is just something that happens on the daily for me. And it's, it kind of appears slow moving, but for me, there's a lot going on. Where do I see the space heading based on, back in the old school days, we used to have, like, I started my channel by making a website talking about how to sideload all of these, they called them OPKs, but these OpenDingX, like Linux apps that you could install on these like rudimentary emulators, and how to kind of get all that configured and working and whatnot. And then all of that got kind of blown through with all the emulation station devices that we have today, like the stuff from Rocknix. And so, yeah, it's been a big change for me in particular, like less research, more time testing, if that makes any sense, like seeing where performance is and whatnot. Where do I see the space heading in general is mostly going to be probably towards more plug and play experiences because of the mainstream appeal of that. I think the Steam Deck is kind of that breakout hit where, like we've talked already, the floor is so low and it's like you just turn that thing on, scan your QR code to log into Steam and to just start playing games. And that's the essential like element of it. And that's so far beyond what was in 2020 when I first started. And I think that we are going to see things like that moving in other directions in other spaces too, ARM-based handhelds, something that's aligning to the Steam frame and all the stuff that they're working on. That's kind of where I see everything going, is making things simpler for the everyday person. The AYN Thor has been a massive success. Like, it's hitting mainstream appeal. Like, there was an IGN review of this thing, those are big milestones, I think, for our community. And so I see those things kind of breaking out more and more. And I think that's kind of where I'm going to go too, is I'm just going to kind of follow and help as many people as I can. Starter guides, or tweaking, or just showing some sort of new fun thing you can do with a thing you already have. That's always how it's been for me since 2020. It's just a matter of what subject matter I tackle in the limited work time that I have every week, I think. So yeah, not a lot of changes really, just more of adapting to what everyone's into at the moment.
And starting a podcast. Look at that.
Yeah, podcasting.
You know?
I mean,
Yeah.
this is a great way for me too, is like how long would it take for me to make a video about any of these questions? You know, because I'm so long-winded, you know, they'd be hour-long videos for each of these. And so we can knock them all out in a podcast. It's beautiful.
There you go. Boom. I think that the handheld space is actually going to inform something else. And I think that's the home theater PC / console space.
Yeah.
I actually believe, well, I should take that back. Before there was this Ramageddon and all this stuff, you know, so, I mean, I unfortunately think the Steam machine is going to have some problems, you know, overcoming this situation.
Sure.
But take that out of account. I believe that the Steam machine actually has a chance of being bigger and having an even bigger impact than the Steam Deck. Because I think at the end of the day, I know a lot of people who actually don't prefer handheld gaming. Who are like, I know people who keep their Switch docked. They're like, oh, I never take that thing out of the dock. I just play it on my TV. So I think I'm going to use a stupid marketing term, but TAM, so total addressable market, of people who would like to have an easy plug-and-play solution to play PC games on their TV is way bigger than people who actually just want to play handhelds. And that's somebody coming to, I'm obviously, I love handhelds,
right.
but like the amount of people who I think that can be addressed from having something that plugs into your TV in a really easy way, just like the Steam Deck did, can be huge. We just saw the news this morning, I'm going to assume you saw the news this morning of the new Xbox, the head of Xbox. I can't remember her name off the top of my head.
Asha, right?
Yeah, Asha mentioned the code name for the Xbox and came out and said, once again, this thing will play Xbox games and PC games, meaning this thing's pretty much just going to be a PC. So between the Steam Deck, and if I'm having my own struggles with home theater PC kind of setups, like if you want to hear about it, it's not handheld related, but it's over on Dual Boot Diaries. Like that space is not super easy to get into. Like consoles. Consoles are the easy thing, but the problem with consoles is that you have a low barrier of entry. The floor is at sea level, but the ceiling is maybe 10 feet up, right? You can't
just a foothill.
Yeah. You can't go in there and dig around and really make it what you want. It is what it is. But imagine a Steam machine or something else that comes out that you put under your TV that if you want to, you can just play it, like scan a QR code, just get in there and start playing it. Or if you're like, oh, this is just a PC, you can do whatever you want with it. You can go in there and do that too. And the ceiling is the sky's the limit. So I actually think that a lot of this space, all this work that this community has been doing for the handheld stuff is going to push the home theater market in a bigger way. And I mean, we're seeing these little Nook devices from companies like Asus and MSI that are
right.
more than powerful, power efficient, all that kind of stuff. And you put one of those little mini PCs under your TV, and if only the experience in the front end and the configuration was easier, I think that's going to be a huge thing.
I think that even tying that into handhelds, the idea of a dockable handheld and like an eGPU setup and whatnot, like all that kind of ties towards it as well. And that's one of the things that, both you and I kind of like commiserated about. And for starting this was like, hey, let's talk about like eGPUs and other portable gaming methods, and I think that home theater thing is exactly it. Each of these Android handhelds, like a Thor or whatever, they're fully dockable too. You can plug this into a USB-C dock and then play that on your TV. And a lot of these can output to like 4K and they look great, especially with the emulation stuff. But Android is not designed for that. So you have to remap the controllers and do all these other things that are just a pain in the butt. So it's not frictionless. And so there's still some growing pains with that too. But yeah, I can definitely see that as being part of the future. And I don't know, maybe we'll rebrand to Expedition Living Room. Who knows?
yeah. A whole new journey to go on. Wow, we just started this journey, and now we're already looking towards the new journey. Yeah. So anyway, great question. Lots of good discussions. I'm curious to see how Russ continues the Retro Game Core brand, and what that's going to look like in 6 more years from now. So stay tuned for that. I had totally forgotten that we were going to commiserate on making an outro, because we do not have any sort of set outro. So I'm just gonna make one up right now, and that's what I do for all the other podcasts I host is check back next week for your fix of Handheld talk here on Expedition Handheld. If you want to look at our pretty faces as we talk, then you can subscribe to us over on YouTube at the Full Nerd Network. That is PCWorld's podcast network that we have over there, including the Full Nerd, where we talk about DIY PC gaming or just all stuff PC, or Dual Boot Diaries, where we talk about Linux, trying to learn Linux, and now Expedition Handheld lives there. But that's okay if you don't want to see us. You can subscribe to us on any of the RSS feeds that are out there. I think we have successfully launched on all the platforms. Nobody has pinged me and said, "Oh, hey, you're not appearing on XYZ RSS feeder or reader, or I'm sorry, feed ingest." If there is something that you use that you're not seeing us on, let us know, and maybe we can get on that platform as well. And the podcast, if we haven't said it explicitly, will be launching every Saturday. We're recording on Thursdays and posting on Saturdays, and I think that cadence works out. Yeah.
Yeah.
You happy
Perfect.
with that? Okay.
Yeah. Love it.
And then there has been questions around getting video in the RSS feeds. It's actually something I've been working on for a couple months, because Spotify is now going to be pushing video versions of podcasts more, and also Apple Podcasts has changed the way that they're going to deliver them. Usually you would have had to have 2 separate RSS feeds, one for the video version, one for the audio version. Now there's going to be like a RSS feed that has both. So essentially you upload a video file, or we upload the video file, and depending on your preference, you either download or stream the video version or the audio version. It's the exact same thing. So something really cool, and I'm glad that they're making this easier now more than ever. I personally would never watch a video version of a podcast on an RSS feed, but that's me. Let me know if you're interested. I guess the one thing that it enables that YouTube doesn't really enable, I mean, unless you're a YouTube Premium subscriber, is to download the video, like to have it play back locally.
Yeah, good point.
I don't know. But unfortunately, we don't have that yet. We are working on it. It requires us on the back end to sign some new legal documents, and we have lawyers here, and they have to deal with lawyer stuff. I don't know. You have a lawyer, Russ?
No,
you work with
not
them?
at all.
Yeah, okay. Well,
I don't even know how to
lucky.
spell lawyer.
Yeah, well, you're lucky. Okay. So hopefully that's coming. Anyway, let's wrap this up, and hopefully we'll be back. That was it. We did make it through the second one.
Yeah.
We did.
It was a great little expedition here. Entry number 2.
I'm tired. I've been drinking water this whole time, but I really need to go rub my feet, soak them, something like that. Oh, you know what? Somebody had mentioned that we should have had an outro. Oh man, I'm not going to be able to find it. I should have wrote it down somewhere. But somebody was like, "Oh yeah, here's a new outro for you." Something that we said last episode that was kind of funny, but now I don't remember it. So it's not that funny.
Oh, good.
Anyway, thanks, Russ. Do you have any sneak previews on videos you're going to be working on?
I think I'm going to make a video about that Xbox emulator. So if you want to see how it actually runs and how games are playing, that's what I'm going to do for the rest of the day here. I'm just going to play some games and film it and then make a video about it. So that'll be out probably same day as this. So look for that.
All right. Yeah, please remind me, Russ, to put that in the description if I
sure.
if I don't get to it. But yep, thanks everybody. We'll get out of here and rest up, because we have a journey to continue on next week. We'll see you later.
Bye, everyone.